Welcome into Bucs Insider. Casey Phillips here with senior writer and editor Scott Smith. We got a minicamp happening, a mandatory minicamp, which is always super fun, and it feels like the first time you're really seeing everyone out there because OTAs, they're voluntary, but we got this mandatory minicamp going on, and it's been great to see all these new pieces, new parts getting a chance to come out there, and we're still continuing to see those rookies get signed, which is great. So we had a little bit of news on that front today. Tell us who we locked down.
Actually, just minutes ago.
Chris
Braswell.
News.
Yeah, exactly. Chris Braswell, the second-round pick, the outside linebacker, he signed his deal. So like every player that's drafted from the 2nd to the 7th rounds, it's a 4-year deal. That's standard. And that leaves just Graham Barton, our first-round pick, unsigned, and I wouldn't worry about it. I've said this many times before, but since the 2011 CBA kind of codified how those contracts are structured and how much they get paid in each spot, there's not much of a reason for holdouts anymore. So I have nothing to do with Graham and us and how they're getting that contract done, but I would be surprised if it's any kind of issue. But yeah, 6 out of 7 in the books now.
All right, so yeah, again, we have mandatory minicamp going on, which also means we've gotten to hear from a ton of vets, a ton of guys, and I mean, Baker, I think all eyes are on Baker at this point of like, here's the guy that last year there was just so much unknown, and he's replacing Tom Brady, and then now he's brought back with this new deal. He's the guy, and I feel like it's such an interesting thing to see the outside approach to Baker and how everyone is responding to him, but then also getting to hear from him how he feels coming into this season where, you know, not as much turmoil of last year of having to move and change things and feeling like in command of this offense and this team. So what have you learned from him when he's spoken?
Well, I wrote about that last week. It's true that after a little bit of bouncing around a little bit and been in some unfortunate situations, he really found a home and you know, got his career back on track last year. And so now he knows he's the starter, unlike last year when he was in competition. But it's not as if there aren't challenges and changes this year, too, because new offensive coordinator, new system, and they have mentioned several times that the biggest thing that's going to be new for Baker is that he's going to have a lot more control. He's going to have multiple calls to choose from in the huddle, and so it can get us against better looks and better plays against whatever defensive looks there. So there's a lot being thrown on his plate. We've already talked about that. Today he was talking about how, you know, tomorrow is the last practice before a long break and then training camp, and how does he handle that? What do you do in that time period to make sure you don't like lose the gains you've made or come into camp not ready? So he said he's a firm believer in initially taking some time off and getting away from football, but then you need to start working out again. And before camp, he needs to come back to Tampa and, you know, run outside and work in this weather, in this climate, so you are ready to go when training camp starts. So that's how he is going to approach it. And I imagine he probably mentions that to a lot of his teammates as well. I'm
sure. And you know, when you talk about the idea of having a little bit more control, stability, when you look at a quarterback, a lot of times that can mean they get a chance to bring in some of their guys. That's something you see when you have a little continuity of not a first-year guy, that who's a quarterback really comfortable with, familiar with, and we saw that this week we got some Sooners reuniting here.
Yeah, they Sterling Shepard, the longtime Giants receiver, actually 5th in Giants history in receptions. He's had some injuries he's had to deal with in recent years, but he's had some really productive seasons. And he and Baker were together for 1 year in Oklahoma, and it was the most prolific year of Sterling Shepard's career, collegiate or NFL. So obviously they work well together. Now, Baker made it clear, because there was a couple guys that are on the receiving corps sitting out with slight muscle injuries and stuff, the Buccaneers needed somebody else, and he was the one. He was the one who first reached out to Sterling and called him and left a message because Sterling was working out at the time.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, well, he was doing a leg day, and the next day, the Bucs decided, yeah, let's bring him in, and so they wanted him to come down the very next day and do a tryout. It was like
after leg day.
He was like, oh, I wish I hadn't done a leg day. But apparently it went well enough, and so as Baker was pointing out, he did make the initial call, but everything else was, you know, Sterling did. Sterling did. And the front office, he told the front office what he thought of Sterling as a person and as a teammate, but they evaluate his talent. Right. So it wasn't like Baker got to make the call, and he wanted to make that clear. You know, he had a hand in getting it going, but it was the front office and Sterling that really got it done. But, you know, one of the things about Sterling Shepard that he pointed out, and it's true, I looked up the numbers, is that he really has a lot of experience both in the slot and on the outside. He thinks of himself as mainly a slot guy, but he's played a lot on the outside. And I went back to the last time he played every game of the season, which was 2018. And look, if you break it down to when he was on the left side, either tight against the line or in the slot, or wide, or the same thing on the right side. And look, he did a lot in each of those and produced quite a bit.
Yeah, that looks incredible.
There was we had numbers there that showed the percentage of plays that he did at each spot, and it was like 20% here, 22% there, so on. So he can move. Yeah, can do it all, which is good if he does indeed make the team and is essentially a reserve, because it's nice to have a guy that if Mike misses a game or half a game or a drive or Chris does, you got a guy that can plug in pretty much
all
anywhere.
of it. Yeah, that's really interesting. All right, another storyline for the minicamp was people wanted to see Vita Vea because there had been reports that it was a slimmer Vita Vea, and everybody wondered, what does this mean? What does this look like? So what have we learned at this point after seeing and hearing from Vita? We
didn't learn the specifics very much because Vita he was a little cagey about it, and kind of funny. He was making jokes, but I don't blame him. I mean, who necessarily?
How many of us want to get up and talk about that?
Say, how much do you weigh now? How much weight did you lose? And if a player decides not to elaborate on that, that's fine with me. But he has apparently, according to coaches, and you can see it, he's slimmed down some. My guess is he's probably closer to where he came in, and I think he was listed at 347 pounds as a rookie. And what Todd Bowles said is he decided to do this on his own. This wasn't something that Todd asked him to do. He told Todd he wanted to be better this coming season, and he wanted to. He decided to do this, and he went and trained with Ndamukong Suh. Everybody knows the story by now. And in Portland, he called it sunny Portland. And Ndamukong Suh played, I think, 13 seasons in the NFL. He could come back again, but he's played like 13 seasons in the NFL, never missed a game due to injury. So if he can get a little bit of that magic, especially playing that position, right? It's
unbelievable.
So his goal, or what Todd says, what his goal is to be able to be on the field more. So, and especially that comes to third downs. He wants to be able to be on the field and be forcing third downs. And if you look at it through his career, his snaps per game, you see in his second and third season, they really peaked there. And then in 2021, that was his Pro Bowl season. You can see the quarterback pressure rate, that was his best ever. And in the 2 years since, the plays haven't gotten back yet to like in his second and third year, but the quarterback pressure rate dropped a little bit. So I think, and that's going to happen a little bit too when you're not on the field as much on third down. So the goal is to keep him on the field more and to get him in the backfield more. And I think this was the big step in that direction.
And then I know another storyline again for minicamp of what we'd been waiting to see was kickoffs. You have these new rules. You've been wanting to see what is that actually going to look like in practice? Who are going to be some of the guys they have back there? Trying to return some of them. What are the different groups going to look like? I mean, this is just such a massive difference to the game. So what have you learned from a few practices getting a chance to watch the special teams periods?
Yeah, and what they're doing now strikes me as their first go at this, and then we get to training camp, the preseason game, see if it works, and then you may have to adjust if it doesn't. It looked to me, and I'm not giving away any strategy or personnel, but it looked to me like the goal for the return, or the idea for the return team, other than the two returners, was to get a lot of big guys on the field, more than you would normally have on a return team where you're doing a lot of running. So these guys, they watch the return man catch the ball, and then they can move, as will the cover guys, but they're hitting each other within like 2 steps. So they don't have to do a lot of running. So big, powerful guys might be more important.
And that gunner role is so different from what there were so many times that those were guys that made the team because of being a gunner.
And that'll still be important on punts.
Yes, but for the kickoff, I mean, what a huge difference in how much that role matters to guys. It's just going to be so interesting from a roster standpoint of how much this shakes
And it
things
looked
up.
like we've also wondered, what type of players the return man going to be? Is it still going to be mostly receivers or maybe running backs? And it was pretty much a big mix. So I think they're looking at a lot of different players, but there were both receivers and running backs, and you can keep either 1 or 2 guys in the landing zone deep near the line, and it looks like probably teams will go with 2, because what you don't want to happen is for them to kick the ball in the landing zone and then it goes into the end zone. So you have 2 guys who can cover the whole field, so one of them catches it and the other one becomes a blocker.
So interesting. All right, and then I know that a big question was whether or not Tristan Wirfs would be here because he had not been a part of OTAs, and so with mandatory minicamp, again, that's where you can be fined to miss it because all the OTAs are voluntary. So has Tristan been here? In what capacity? And what have we learned about that?
Tristan is here. He's been on the practice field both days so far. I'm sure he'll be there tomorrow as well. He has not been practicing, and it's pretty obviously because I think both sides don't think that needs to happen until he gets a new contract. And so I'm sure this was the plan. Nobody's upset. They're just holding him out of practice. Todd Bowles said it wouldn't do him. It wouldn't make any difference for him to come and do 3 practices. Right. It's 3 practices.
He knows what he's doing.
Yeah, and so I don't think they were eager for him to get on the field. There's plenty of other guys that could use the reps, and so that's a pretty common way to handle this kind of thing. But he is here.
Yep, he is here, which is great news. And then also last week we told you on this show that later that day we were going to be having the Cut and Color Funds the Cure. We wanted to let everybody actually take a look at this incredible event. It is so much fun to be a part of. So Gronk showed up as a huge partner of it, got his head shaved, and it was incredible. There were just so many players, coaches, people. There's Mike. And let me tell you, these kids were not shy with that dye, as you can tell. They were going crazy. And just Coach Bowles participated, a bunch of different players, alumni players, and then having all those kids out there getting a chance. I think that's Antoine, if I can see correctly. And yeah, those kids went to town on Antoine, as you can tell by the giant cloud engulfing his head. It was just so much fun. A lot of great money. Oh wait, was this? Yeah. It also says Yaya on this, but I'm like that doesn't look like Yaya. Oh, he's helping. That's what I couldn't see. It's such a tiny thing. Yaya is helping spray.
He looked like he was having a good time. That's Jose Ramirez.
Jose. There we go. We're looking at a tiny little monitor here, so we couldn't tell. I was looking at just the hair. So that was Yaya helping spray Jose Ramirez, which is really great. That's funny. Tons of fun was had, lots of money was raised, and we just want to say thank you to anyone who donated or participated. And either way, we hope everybody is able to participate moving forward as well.
You didn't get your head shaved?
Yeah, I think I'm going to pass on that.
I don't know. I think that'd be a good look for you.
I appreciate that. I'll take that into consideration.
Before we go, can I make a little shout out?
Yes, please do.
Today was the last day for Jeff Tewksbury, a legend in our local media. He's been helping WTVT, Fox 13, cover the Buccaneers for 36 years.
Incredible.
And you won't meet a nicer or kinder human than Jeff Tewksbury. So he's got a few weeks left on his job, and then he's retiring, but today was his last day covering the Bucs. And so the Bucs communications department treated him and the media to a big cake. And then when Coach Bowles did his post-practice interview at the podium, he first called Tukes up and presented him with a 36 jersey with his name on it to commemorate his 36 years of working this. But you will not find anybody who will say a cross word about Jeff Tewksbury. So
that's awesome.
One of the all-time greats right
All-time greats. Congrats to him. Enjoy retirement. Very well deserved. All right, that's going to do it for us on this edition of Bucs Insider. We'll see you next time.